Lord, help us to see you more clearly, to love you more dearly, to follow you more nearly, day by day. Amen. Please be seated. When Mary, the mother of Jesus, after searching for her child, finally found him in the temple with the elders and the teachers, learning from them and teaching them, it said she did not understand what was happening. She treasured it in her heart. And I like to think that surely she must have been thinking, I don't know what the future holds in store for us, but God is in the midst of it, and I'm here for it. There was a time before I had children that hearing this story did not give me the same sense of vicarious panic attack that it does now. Things change once you have children of your own and they disappear on you in a crowd. So I get it now in a sense, and anybody who's thinking, how could Jesus' whole family not realize for a day that Jesus is not among them? Let me tell you. I just came back from being on a Christmas vacation. When you are a member of the clergy, Christmas is kind of a work day. So you vacation the week after. My whole family and I flew to Florida for a little time off, and while we were in the airport was one of those moments in the crash of family and the people pushing and the TSA and people rushing to their car rentals to suddenly look and realize one of our children is not among us. And all the parents and adults start looking at each other with that look of, I thought you had him. He was supposed to be with you. So I'm just saying, it happens. Now, in my case, one of my children was gone for maybe 30 seconds at the most. But I get the sense of panic that happens, and so I can only imagine what it must have been like for 3 days. For 3 days to be looking for Jesus and his mother thinking, surely he's dead and gone, just to have him pop up and say, no, I'm alive and fine. So mental note, Jesus has a habit of doing this. When they find him, they find him in the temple, in the holiest of places, with the scribes and the elders and the teachers, learning from them and teaching them. This would be the surprising equivalent of when I found my son after 30 seconds, not finding him where I did, which was just, I'm counting the lights on the ceiling. No big deal. No, this would be the equivalent of finding him in the air traffic control tower, teaching them how to do their jobs. It's that level of surprise. And then to hear Jesus' response, which is to seemingly say, well, where else would you expect me to be? Well, not there. Not landing airplanes. Not teaching the greatest, learnest, holiest people of our faith. And so Mary is confused. And Mary treasures it in her heart and has to be thinking to herself, I don't know what the future holds in store for us, but God is clearly in the midst of this, and I'm here for it. I hope that is the spirit with which we can enter 2025. We are at the beginning of a brand new year, and I hope while none of us know what this year holds in store for us, we can approach it with that same sense of assurance that God will be in the midst of it, and we can commit to being there for it. If we're going to look at the last few years, it would be easy to look ahead at 2025 with great fear and trepidation, thinking through how hard sometimes the years can be. Today is January 5th. We're but 4 passes around the sun from a January 6th insurrection at the Capitol building, where American citizens versus other Americans in hatred and fear turn against one another, leading to bloodshed in the seat of democracy of our nation. We are coming very quickly on the 3rd year anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and seeing year after year of unnecessary oppression and bloodshed. In 2023, we saw as Hamas terrorists attacked and killed innocent people, and the resulting conflict that has now turned into an even bloodier conflict in Gaza, with tens upon tens of thousands dead, schools destroyed, hospitals destroyed. And in 2024, a year that contained, among other things, Hurricane Helene, Hurricane Milton, which, if you remember, got turned and used as political pawns to turn people against one another rather than helping those in their time of need. A year with a fraught political election cycle where people were filled with anxiety and trepidation. No matter who you hoped would win in the outcome, it raised the anxiety of everyone in the nation, leading to things like assassination attempts, multiple assassination attempts. And even by the very end of our year, seeing terrorist attacks, not one, but 2 terrorist attacks, one in New Orleans, one in Las Vegas from a veteran military man and an active military person. It would be very easy to look at 2025 with great fear and trembling, but to remember that that is not the entirety of our story. No, these years have also been filled with people who have taken the time to be present with a child and help them with their homework, help them with their math and their reading and their art, in the hopes that they may grow up to do something profound with it. Or if nothing else, know that they matter to someone, that they are important. These have been years filled with people who have donated blood, donated organs to save a complete stranger in need, but because it is saving a life. It doesn't matter whose life, it's saving a life. This has been years filled with people who have taken the time to foster pets in shelters in need, to plant trees, to volunteer for the suicide prevention text line, to take the time when you don't have to serve at a food bank or a soup kitchen. People who have taken the Bible and instead of using it as a tool for judgment and condemnation, have instead used it as a tool for warmth and light and love. Those things have happened in these years too. Maybe they don't make the headlines quite the same way, unless you're somebody like our dearly departed President Jimmy Carter, our 39th president, who continued to make headlines even after his presidency by continuing to help build homes for people in need through Habitat for Humanity, to use the influence and the gifts that he had in order to try to end illnesses in deprived nations that didn't have resources for themselves. And possibly one of my favorite things, that even toward the end would still go to church a couple of times a month and lead Sunday school classes, asking questions, giving answers, learning from others, mutually growing and learning and trying to make the world a better place. It's been said by some that he's the only person that has been known to use the presidency as a stepping stone onto bigger and better things. So what's the difference between those two scenarios? The world on the one hand, or the possibilities of the world of the other. What divides them? And I think part of what divides them is what we see Jesus doing in this story. He's taking the time to sit down with others, to hear their stories, to ask questions and to learn. And we'll get to that part in a minute. That's important. But also to teach and share what he knows. This is a young 12-year-old Jesus who, if you know your traditions, he would have been, at the age, if he were 12-year-old today, he would be preparing for his bar mitzvah. entering into the age of maturity where he would be taking the first steps into a mature ownership of his being as a person of faith in this world. He would be at the very beginning of it. And it would be his family at this Passover celebration who might be taking him at 12 years old to his very first time participating in the family pilgrimage to the temple, to take it all in for the first time. And here he is, in this way that Luke does, in the Gospel of Luke, to constantly show us that Jesus does not operate by human rules, Jesus operates by God's rules. Where the 12-year-old that's supposed to be coming and hearing and learning is the one who's able to come and stand in mutuality and teach and make connections. And I think that's the lesson of what we can take away from this story. Because I've watched the people of St. James, and I see some of my favorite moments here are those moments of making connections with another person in the midst of the work that we're doing. That's living the gospel message. Some of my favorite moments include our 9 a.m. morning prayer services, Monday through Friday on Zoom. And we get together, and it's a great way of starting off our day with morning prayer, yes, but also importantly, it's a time to get to know what's going on in another person's life. And you can get to make connections. There's one couple that I've gotten to know that they have family that live in Florida. So I had the opportunity to say, "Oh gosh, your family's possibly in the path of Hurricane Milton. Are they doing okay?" And that sounds like a little thing, but it makes the world a better place. I love on our Wednesday nights here at St. James, where we can all take a little bit of pause and whatever we have going on in the middle of our week, and gather for an evening prayer service, and then to have dinner across the table and hear the stories of another person, hear what's going on in their lives, who just adopted a new pet, who just had a child that went off to school. How can I help you with that? I had that experience too. Let me tell you what helped me in that moment. Maybe it'll help you too. I love our gatherings after every Sunday service, after every 11 o'clock service, where we gather upstairs on the second floor to make sandwiches for the hungry. And we're not just up there making sandwiches, we're making connections with the other people up there making sandwiches too. What do you do for a living? Oh, I thought about doing that in college too. Got any interesting? Here's this pet peeve I've always had. You've got pet peeves too. How about you? Any phobias? Oh, you're afraid of spiders too? Isn't that so weird and irrational? I'm afraid of spiders. And it sounds like a little connection until suddenly you're sick and you can't make the delivery to feed the hungry that week, and you can call up that other person, and that person can say, "Hey, fellow spider phobe, I got your back. We'll get those people fed this week." It makes the world a better place. I love that our choir, calling you all out, I love that our choir doesn't just take the time to sing together and lift us all up with this beautiful music, but take the time to know what's going on in each other's lives, to be a support to one another in times of need. That's taking it to a deeper level than is necessary, but it makes the world a better place. I love for our newcomers' luncheons, where we have gatherings of people who are new to the church or somewhat new to the church or who have even been here for a while, to sit across the table with someone else and hear a story they've never known, to talk about how you grew up. There's a story about how I grew up. And walk in as strangers, but come out having connected to one other person. And we know in this world what a difference it makes to have a sense of connection to one other person. We know the statistics on suicide and gun violence and hatred and oppression in this world, and the difference in bullying, and what a difference that it makes for somebody to know that they have one solid, stable connection with a person who gets them, who hears them, who matters to them. Because while we won't have in this room a lot of control over some of the great oppressions and violence we hear on the news, And it's too easy to write it off as saying, well, that's just evil. And it is, a lot of the time. Just evil. But that lets us off the hook. Because there's nothing you can do about just evil. But also in this world, there's a lot of brokenness. There's a lot of people who are hurting, who have been hurt, who are lashing out. There's a lot of people who feel afraid and confused and alone. There's a lot of people who don't think they matter to anybody else or don't think anybody hears them or where their values are. And we can do something about that. When Jesus got together with the teachers and the elders in the temple, it wasn't because they all agreed. It wasn't because he agreed with them or was going to fix all the problems in the world. Surely it did not. We see that what Jesus did not fix all the problems in the world, and it didn't make them all of one mind. And it isn't simply a lesson in Jesus saying, oh, abandon your family when you have the opportunity. But we do know that Jesus actually brings up again and again, multiple times Jesus talks about being willing to leave one's family behind. And it's not because Jesus is anti-family. We know he's not. But Jesus is against the idea of anything holding you back from being the kind of person who can get out there and make connections, to tell the story, and to hear the story of others. Remember I said in this gospel story, Jesus did teach them and they learned from him, yes, but Jesus also was seeking knowledge and asking questions and learning from them too. There was a mutuality to it. And it's that mutuality, making a connection with another person, that creates the opportunities for us to then be the people who go out and help a child with their homework assignment, or plant a tree, or volunteer at the meal ministry, or who stand there in the brink of a person in need who doesn't think that anybody else sees them, and to say, I see you. We can do that. And so no, while I don't think any of us know what 2025 holds in store for us, I hope that we as a community can walk into it with that same sense of awe and wonder, walking into the unknown that Mary did when she saw her son Jesus. And I hope we can say what she said, which is I have no idea what the future holds here, but God is clearly in the midst of it, and we are here for it. Amen.